a man who the church is raising up as an example, as a hero of our faith, walked these halls, prayed in this chapel, it makes our faith come alive, and we realize that these heroes, these saints, these blesseds that the church has are real live people. And that makes the call to sanctity much more real.
He's just an incredible model of what a student should be. He was such a hard worker and such a devoted student that I think students can really learn from his example.
Fulton J. Sheen, who taught at the Catholic University of America from 1926 to 1950, was among the first to successfully harness the power of the media to preach the gospel. His frequent appearances on radio and television made him one of the most well-known Catholics in American history. In the summer of 2012, Pope Benedict XVI declared Fulton J. Sheen venerable, meaning that Sheen was found to have lived a life of heroic virtue worthy of imitation. The cause for Sheen's canonization is active and could lead to him becoming the first native-born American male to be named a saint.
When we think about the reality of who Fulton Sheen is and his impending beatification to be declared a blessed on his road to canonization, we felt that we really needed to mark this moment of history. We felt that we needed to share this reality with others.
I think there's a budding interest within the life of Fulton Sheen. We have sort of these small little grassroots pockets of people really wanting to delve into the life of Fulton Sheen, especially now that his beatification is coming up. They're wondering, who is this man, this name that we've heard, this former professor of CUA, what is he all about?
The rise of the charming and witty Fulton J. Sheen, from a humble farm boy to a priest, professor, bishop, cultural icon, and candidate for sainthood, is a story that begins in El Paso, Illinois, and ends soon after a dramatic embrace by Pope John Paul II in New York's St. Patrick's Cathedral. Few people realize that Sheen's path to possible sainthood led through Catholic University, first as a student and later as a professor of theology and philosophy.
Well, knowing that Fulton Sheen not only came from my part of the world, Illinois, but also studied and worked at the university I'm at now, I don't know, it's just kind of really almost comforting.
He was here as a professor, doing his studies and carrying them out and teaching, so he contributed to the life of the university. And the students have that, first of all, to learn from him, his example of learning, digging into books, studying the ancient and medieval wisdom, and then allowing that wisdom and those principles to really fill your mind, shape the direction of your life. That's what's supposed to happen in any good university, and Fulton Sheen is a great example of that actually happening.
When Sheen was sent to Washington, D.C. to teach at Catholic University in 1926, he quickly learned the necessity of blending solid content with engaging presentation. Over his years of teaching, Sheen became one of the most popular professors at the university. Students would flock to hear his lectures in a crowded room 112 McMahon Hall, even if it meant sitting on the radiators.
He saw his experience here as very important and crucial to his own success as a Catholic teacher and representative of the Catholic Church in the United States.
Each person in the room who was taking a class with him had the sense that he was looking directly at that person. So he would stand there and look, and each person sensed he was looking directly at them. And it was just a kind of feeling that everyone had.
After 23 years of teaching in CUA classrooms, Sheen had the opportunity to push out his classroom walls and embrace the world when he began his acclaimed television series, Life is Worth Living. The show was so successful that when the Academy of Television Arts and Sciences awarded the Emmy for the most outstanding television personality in 1953, they passed over names like Lucille Ball, Frank Sinatra, and Edward R. Murrow, and settled on the engaging lecturer from the Catholic University of America.
Well, freedom is a word that's very often used and not very often understood. As a matter of fact, freedom has two sides. One is freedom from something, namely from constraint and force. The other is the freedom for something, namely a goal or a purpose. This is concerned with means, this is concerned with ends and destinies. This is the bridge, this is the city.
He could speak about the deepest, most intricate truths of the Catholic faith and do that in a way that's effective and meaningful for the average person watching him on television.
He began broadcasting these ideas to a largely hostile population, making them more popular and more acceptable, and actually more comprehensible.
I remember thinking, even as a child, how interesting and funny he was. It's odd that a show with a bishop who was lecturing about religious matters would engage the attention of children as small as I was, and I was 6 years old at the time, maybe. But I remember being taken with them by his humor and his intelligence even at the time.
On every time they said their prayers. Suppose now I gave you a statistic. Suppose I investigated the number that said their prayers, or I said that I did, and I gave you this answer. The 12.3%.
As Fulton Sheen advances ever closer to beatification, the CUA community is finding inspiration in his model of holiness.
Catechesis has to be rooted in prayer. And then you see a man who touched millions of people at a time when Catholics didn't even use the word evangelization. And you look back at his programs and his messages, and you have to see that what he was doing is definitely rooted in prayer. So it just reinforces, I think, what even our Holy Father, Pope Francis, is saying right now. If you're preaching God's word, you have to be rooted in God's word in terms of prayer.
Fulton Sheen is actually part of the reason why I'm a diocesan seminarian. I mean, when I first really rediscovered my faith, I listened to Life is Worth Living every day on the way to school. And he's just formed so much of my outlook. And it's just amazing to be able to share in a place he helped form.
He wasn't someone who was afraid. He wasn't afraid of the world. He wasn't afraid of himself, of going out and of preaching the gospel. And I think he really represents what the new evangelization is all about. And he's really a model for us to take that message and to bring it out, to not keep it within ourselves, but really to share it.
In 1950, Monsignor Sheen submitted a letter of resignation to Bishop Patrick J. McCormick, rector of the university. He wrote, "After 23 years of happy association, I take leave of the Catholic University academically, but not spiritually. For though I served as a teacher, I was nevertheless a pupil of its collective wisdom, and I shall therefore always be bound to it as a willing debtor."
I guess what I would hope is that people would go back and look at his writings, go back and watch some of his broadcasts, and listen to him and just enjoy him.
Sheen really shows us how we can use our potential and how these 4 years are great that everybody has here, but it's about going out into the world.
It is a reminder to all of us that we're called to be saints, and even if we're professors of philosophy or theology or staff at a university as I am, or the people who serve the food at the university, it's a vocation.
When we are building our character, we need some model on the outside, someone with justice and mercy and goodness and a spirit of sacrifice will inspire us to tear off these chunks of selfishness that we may be like unto him. For as he said, I have given you an example. May all the American characters begin to emerge now under the grace of God. As we continue to be a great nation, loving one another in a spirit of charity, loving God who made us and blessed us.